that sounds like a lot of pens, young man. But if it gets me to Tahiti, let's do it. John couldn't believe it. He grabbed the order form and prepared to write up his very first sale as a professional telemarketer. But the old man had questions. Tell me something, son. How long will I get to stay in Tahiti? Is this a cruise, or will you fly me there? John knew that everyone who bought the pens got the clock. Everyone. John also knew the clock was made of cork and press wood and held together with Kleenex and spit. But hey, for $99, 144 pens wasn't a bad deal, right? John referred back to his script. Well, sir, it really all depends on the luck of the draw. You could win the trip to Tahiti, or you could win the clock. The old man paused on the other end of the line, and John held his breath. Well, son, the thing is, I'm on a fixed income, you see. But tell me, if I buy 2 grosses of pens, will that improve my chances of going to Tahiti? There are many decisions in life that don't feel significant at the time, but when added up, turn you into the person you are. John, to his credit, couldn't go through with the sale. He told the old man the whole thing was a scam. Then, he quit the telemarketing business and redoubled his efforts to become a rock star, which, in spite of his very best efforts, did not pan out. John and his band opened for the Ramones, Iggy Pop, and the Talking Heads, but that's as far as they got. If John really wanted to be famous, he'd have to try something different. But as it turns out, not something entirely new. Remember the script that John hated so much as a telemarketer? Well, as it turns out, scripts were not the enemy after all. And the endless rejection he experienced on the telephone? Well, that prepared him for the endless rejection every actor experiences in the course of any successful career. And yeah, John's career turned out to be quite the success, thanks to the many scripts that John brought to life. It started with a small part in a creepy little script about a place called Elm Street and led to a string of films that have so far grossed over $3 billion worldwide, which is why today, John can play his music wherever it suits him and live like the rock star he always thought he'd become. Not bad for a former pen salesman who never sold a single pen. And something to think about the next time your phone rings in the middle of dinner. Who knows who's really on the other end? It could be a random pen salesman, or an aspiring rock star, or a young man struggling with his conscience who would go on to distinguish himself in a completely unexpected way. In other words, could be the next Johnny Depp. Anyway, that's the way I think.
You start this one, Mike.
Okay. Believe it or not, that was the single most satisfying story I've ever written.
Okay.
For me.
Why?
Because for 3 years, I sold magazines over the phone for the Dial America marketing company. Maybe you'd like the Time or the TV Guide, maybe the Newsweek or the Ladies' Home Journal. Either way, 12.5% of every purchase will go to the Special Olympics or the Big Brothers and Sisters, and you get the magazine at a remarkable discount. And wouldn't it be a swell way to work out help a terrific charity? Blah, 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 blah.
Are you saying you were Johnny Depp? Is what you're saying?
I would never say that. I don't have a Amber Heard in my life at the moment.
Oh,
Man can...
early
Too soon?
Yeah.
Too soon?
Early. That was. I didn't expect it that early. Go ahead.
I had no idea what Johnny Depp's youth was like. I knew he played music, and when I found out he was a pen salesman, and I found an interview with him talking about this moment of crisis, this crisis of conscience, and I knew exactly what that felt like.
Oh my goodness.
I also knew exactly what it felt like to be asked to read a script that was no good, to have a boss that insisted, because it had been focus grouped, right? And, this script, we've determined all you have to do is say these words in a crisp, well-modulated baritone, and the sales will follow. Well, I hated that. I learned in those days about myself that it was way more satisfying to use my own words. And I learned that, there's really no such thing as a bad job. There are jobs you don't like, and there are jobs you love. At Dial America Marketing, I learned that, just because you hate something doesn't mean you can't be good at it. I was good at this job.
Oh,
man.
wow.
I was good at it. To my horror, I sold a lot of magazines. And around the same time in my life, I was also learning that just because you love something doesn't mean you can't stink at it.
Wow.
So with regard to work, that moment in Johnny Depp's life was something I could really relate to, because he knew what he thought he wanted to be, and he was working hard to get there, to be a musician, a working, famous musician. And one of the steps he had to do was sell pens over the telephone. But of course, he was terrible at that. And the truth is, this passion he had for being a musician, this passion he was following, well, he was about to learn you don't want to follow your passion. You want to bring it with you. And you want to see where that leads. And the next thing you know, he's Edward Scissorhands. We're all salesmen. Some of us are pretty good at it. Some of us are pretty bad. Most of us are kind of somewhere in between. But the business of persuading, you can certainly find it in a good school teacher, in a good preacher, in a good literal salesman, obviously. But I learned very early on that the ability to talk for long periods of time without actually saying anything of importance was, in fact, weirdly valuable. And
and currently at play.
And currently on display. I mean, obviously, it's amazing. Look at them still watching. It's unbelievable. You people will watch anything. No, I was singing in the opera back in 1989. I saw an ad for an audition for the QVC cable shopping channel, and they were doing a national cattle call.
My goodness.
Most of my career actually involves like crashing an audition. That's how I got into the opera. It was an open call. And during that time, the QVC had come to Baltimore, and they were downtown at the Marriott, and they were seeing anybody who could show up. Because in those days, Matt, no one knew how to hire at QVC. Actors with experience in front of the camera couldn't necessarily sell, and salesmen who had never been in front of the camera,
Froze up.
Right? You never knew. So, unbeknownst to me, they were hiring, in those days, anyone who could talk about a pencil for 8 minutes straight. Now, they don't tell you this, right? You just walk in and you just sit down at the conference table, and the guy takes a pencil from behind his ear, and he rolls it across the table.
Oh, God.
And he hits record on a camera, and the red light comes on, and he says, "Son, when I point to you, I want you to start talking about that pencil. And don't stop until I tell you to stop, but make me want the pencil." And so he rolls the pencil across the table, and I pick it up, and I say, "Hi, I'm Mike Rowe, and what we have here is a pencil. Or is it something a bit more? Let's start with the color. It's yellow, clearly. Why? I'll tell you why. Because you're busy. You're a busy executive. You're a busy person trying to get through a hectic life. And when you open that drawer looking for a pencil, you don't want to root around for some beige colored, camouflaged, invisible writing implement. You want that bold canary yellow to pop. You want to see that pencil and you want to pick it up, satisfied with the fact that you were able to quickly identify, locate, and implement it. But then let's talk about the lead, which isn't really lead, Matt. It's graphite. Number 2, for a good, firm, crisp line, not that wispy, unsatisfying line you get with number 1, or that thick skid mark of a mess you get with number 3. This is number 2 graphite. Blah, blah, blah. On I went. You know, when I ran out of features and benefits, I started talking about crossword puzzles and Sudokus, and the arrogance of doing them with a pen when a pencil was right there. The greatest mathematical theorems of all time, done with a pencil. Einstein gave us the theory of relativity with a pencil. My first love note to Heather Clevey, once upon a time, written with a pencil. My goodness, I went on and on. 8 minutes came by. The poor guy begged me to stop talking. He took the pencil from me. He wrote, "You're hired," on a piece of paper. And 3 days later, in the middle of the night, I was sitting there on the QVC cable shopping channel, trying to make sense of the Health Team infrared pain reliever and the Amcor negative ion generator, and whatever else they brought me.
Cat sack.
The cat sack was a good one. You should Google that, folks. Not my finest hour, but it's a bag with a mylar interior, and when your cat crawls into it, it makes a clink sound that they find absolutely irresistible. The things we do. The things we do on the way to wherever it is we're going.
As we naturally age.
A gross of pins. It was just awful. Actually, I think that was the first experience I had with acting. One day, the people who didn't believe in you will tell everyone how they met you.
Oh, that's great.
Only a bad day, not a bad life.
Who knew? Who knew Johnny Depp was such a deep well of wisdom and insight? These mini moral dilemmas where a movie star that we all know, right? You can kind of identify. That's when these stories make the most sense to me, when we learn something we didn't know about somebody we do. So, say what you will about Johnny Depp today. He's lived a pretty big life. He's been out there on the cover of every magazine there is. How interesting for him to have a moral dilemma over the telephone with a gross of pens and an old man.
And just think, a little eyeshadow away, and you could have been Jack Sparrow. Let me go back to a quote from Johnny. It's only a bad day, not a bad life.
Yeah.
Why do bad things happen to good people?
I suppose because if good things only happen to good people, then it would be so breathtakingly obvious to be good. There wouldn't be any bad people, and with no bad people, there would be nothing relatable or akin to evil, which meant good would begin to resemble something else entirely. I don't know what all those words mean grouped together, but I feel like you just asked me to sell a pencil for 8 minutes. And so I said some words that I've heard, Matt. Is anyone buying any of this?
So
I never see myself on this camera.
Yeah, there you are.
Don't worry.
Sit back, you're in my way now. So there was a theological kind of group.
Look at you trying to keep this conversation on the rails. I love it.
No, this is a fun little thing.
All right.
I'm jumping off what you said. There was a theological little group. I'm not even going to name it. Some people in our audience would know what I'm talking about. That espoused the idea that if you were a follower of Christ, then nothing bad should ever happen to you again. And if it did, then, there's something, you got a little skeleton in the closet or something like that you're not, telling anybody about and all this kind of stuff. But if Christians didn't then everyone would seek to become a Christian so they wouldn't have any trouble in their life.
What's the purpose of faith?
Yeah.
You wouldn't need faith if you could prove beyond a shadow of a doubt that nothing bad would ever happen to you if you were simply good.
Just believe his word about what he says about you, no matter what the reality is.
The law of the Spirit of life in Christ has set us free from a law of sin and death.
We're saved by grace, and then we're sanctified by the Holy Spirit. And so we continue to grow, but we will stumble, we will fall. The promise of God is that he will catch us, he will secure us, and he will make sure we get home.